was conducted over the middle of December of 2001. And here's some commentary from a key player at the Battle of Tora Bora.
Following the strategy of keeping an Afghan face on the war, Fury's Delta team joined the CIA and Afghan fighters and piled into pickup trucks. They videotaped their journey to a place called Tora Bora. Fury told us his orders were to kill bin Laden and leave the body with the Afghans.
Right here, you're looking at basically the battlefield from the last location that we had firm on Osama bin Laden's location.
This ridge line is at about 14,000 feet, and back this way toward me is Pakistan.
That's right.
On a scale of, say, 1 to 10, 10 being the toughest, how tough a position is this to attack?
In my experience, it's a 10.
Delta developed an audacious plan to come at bin Laden from the one direction he would never expect.
We want to come in on the back door.
You were going to come up over the tops of the peaks?
That's right. The original plan that we sent up to our higher headquarters, Delta Force wants to come in over the mountain with oxygen, coming from the Pakistan side, over the mountains and come in and get a drop on bin Laden from behind.
Why didn't you do that?
Disapproved at some level above us. Whether that was Central Command or all the way up to the President of the United States, I'm not sure.
The next option Delta wanted to employ was to drop hundreds of landmines in the mountain passes that led to Pakistan, bin Laden's escape route.
First guy blows his leg off, everybody else stops. That allows aircraft overhead to find them. They see all these heat sources out there. Okay, there's a big, large group of al-Qaeda moving south. They can engage that.
Why didn't you do that?
Disapproved.
Why was it not approved?
I have no idea.
How often does Delta come up with a tactical plan that's disapproved by higher headquarters?
In my experience, in my 5 years at Delta, never before.
The military wouldn't tell us who rejected the plans or why. Fury wasn't happy about it, but he pressed on with the only option he had left, a frontal assault on bin Laden's dug-in al-Qaeda fighters. The Delta team had only about 50 men, so the mission would depend on the Afghan militia as guides and muscle. Their leader was a warlord, a self-styled general named Ali. Ali, second from the left, met with this CIA officer and accepted millions of dollars in cash from the agency. Dressed like Afghans, the Americans maneuvered up the mountains, calling in airstrikes on al-Qaeda. By day they would advance, but at night they soon discovered that their Afghan allies went home.
Well, I have to assume that if you started up the hills of Tora Bora and the Mujahideen took territory, they didn't abandon that at night.
Oh, yes, they did.
They gave it up to the enemy?
Absolutely. The Mujahideen would go up, get into a skirmish, a firefight, lose a guy or two, maybe kill an al-Qaeda guy or two, and then they leave. It was almost like it was an agreement and understanding between the two forces fighting each other. Almost put on a good show and then leave.
In the morning, bin Laden was on the radio. The CIA, Delta, and their Afghan allies were listening.
How did the Afghans react when they heard from Osama bin Laden on the radio?
Osama bin Laden is many a Muslim's hero. These guys, in my opinion, were more in awe of Osama bin Laden than they were willing to kill him. When they heard him talking on the radio, they would gather around the individual that held that handheld transistor. He would hold it up in the air, almost as if he didn't want the connection to break. Almost like they could see the ridge line Osama bin Laden happened to be talking from, like they could almost see him and feel his presence. And they just stood there with wide eyes and somewhat in awe that here is the leader of the jihad, the leader of al-Qaeda, and they're actually hearing his voice over the radio.
And these were the men who were supposed to help you capture or kill him. Some allies.
And then something extraordinary happened. Fury's Afghan allies announced that they had negotiated a ceasefire with al-Qaeda, something the Americans had no interest in. When Fury's team advanced anyway, his Afghan partners drew their weapons on Delta. It took 12 hours to end the bogus ceasefire, precious time for al-Qaeda to move.
You got to figure he's heading for the valley and the pass into Pakistan.
Our assumption is he's going for the valley at that time.
Bin Laden had changed direction and the tone of his radio calls.
Clearly under duress, clearly hurting, clearly caring for his men.
Inside this building, the American team listened to bin Laden on the radio. Fury wrote down the translation in a notebook.
Quote, "Our prayers were not answered. Times are dire and bad. We did not get support from the apostates who are our brothers. I'm sorry for bringing you here. It is okay to surrender," end quote.
When you heard that, what did you think?
I thought,